First of all, thanks for tuning in. Ivy here, and today we're about to go for Tone of Rise of the Northstar last album, so without further ado let's get right into it. So just as always we start from template for guitars REAMPING. That's how it sounds. Let's start from rhythm guitars. We have two tracks, panned hard left and right, and then them shits go to GTR bus. Processing model of both is exactly the same, so we will review only one of them. First thing in chain is Pro Q, which I use to decrease incoming level of guitars in front of the screamer. TSE 808 Screamer. This one is mostly to keep distortion of add more tight and linear. Then we cut out unwanted noises with gate. I already did some editing work on the DI here, but also left small part with noise in the very beginning for demonstrational purposes. And finally amplifier. LE 456 with these settings. And right after we use K-Fire Impulse Loader to load my custom produced mix ready impulse. Just as always you'll find this one in the additional files pack for this guide. As I already said, both routed to GTR bus, which doesn't have any effects on it. I only use it for one-pass multi-channel export. Lead guitar. Pretty much the same way I use Pro Q for attenuation. This time it drops signal 15 decibels down, but it's mostly because of the fact that I've played this lead part dirty as fuck without covering open strings. If do it right, you probably don't even need this shit. LE 456 with same settings, however this time I use bit of drive and less tone on screamer to get smoother kind of sounding. Different impulse response designed for lead tone. CLA 76 to add some sustain to them long ass notes. H delay with very low mix amount to add tiny bit of mono space. Last thing in chain is Pro Q, which I use to cut out some of that fizzy presence. Track is routed to stereo out, but I also have sends to these two FX channels. As you can guess, one for delay and one for reverb. Both of them routed to lead space bus, which again doesn't have any effects. Once we're done with editing and reamping, set up them start and markers, open up export window, activate multi-channel mode and choose GTR bus, lead GTR and lead space for export. Next stop, base template. Just as always, I use Trillion for bass sampling. Hardcore finger pause on the shit, full range thick pause again samples here. Notice that all internal processing is bypassed, so amp section is bypassed too, and we only have direct signal with this amount, cause we're gonna process this shit externally. Recommended velocity range here is 117. But as you can see, I use some lower levels here and there to sort of humanize bass part. Speaking of inserts, first plugin in chain is K-Fire with Impulse, designed for Trillion's tone correction. Check this out. What it does is rebuilding DI tone of Trillion to more common bass tone, which is very easy to work with. Next step, R47 distortion pedal by TSE. Next, impulse acts like actual cab response. Our bass to add some fundamental low end. I use drop C tuning, and 65 Hz is basically where our lowest note locates. Who even need others when you can just do them 0 fret palm mutes? NLS and mic mode with pretty big amount of drive. This one is for a bit of that console saturation, and because of the fact that it works in dual mono mode, we also make our bass wider instead of having it dead center. Pro C compressor to be sure that different notes will have less difference in volume. Last thing in chain is Pro Q with this timber shape, to clean up the spectre from boomy low end and noisy high mids. You know I wouldn't be me without adding additional distortion layer, but I didn't want to have that mess with sends, so this time we're going to go for a different way. Once we're done with MIDI editing, bypass these inserts, set up start and markers, open up export window and do export from Trillion channel. Be sure to activate this audio track option, so rendered audio will be loaded back to the project. It should appear this way. Copy this audio to these two channels. First is exact copy of what we've had on Trillion channel. And the second one is copy of rhythm guitar processing model. That's how it sounds. Distorted layer is much lower than the main one. And I also have few more plugins at the end. First one is Pro Q, which I use to cut off unwanted sub-lows and also add some brightness on highs. And second one is simple delay to make phase problems less obvious. You can still hear it, but because of such a low level it's not a big deal. After that I did some editing work on them tracks. Main one have only this little thing here. Let me show how I did it. We're gonna work with this note right here. So what I did is separated this note using them scissor shits. Then applied this kind of pitch automation. So it sort of returns from -12 semitones. And then I slice it again this way. And last thing I did is cleaning up the audio from distorted level from unwanted release noises. That's how it could sound without the editing. Pretty dirty. Of course I could simply turn off Trillion's release, but it would make clean base level more robotic. That's why I used to go this way. We're finally ready for export, so open up export window, activate multi-out mode and choose these channels for export. We're gonna keep our drums in the main mixing session, so that's basically where we are now. We're about to use updated version of drums model from my last template. In most cases it's pretty much the same thing, so we will do silent settings run and then I will explain what has been changed. If any of you interested in parts which we will ignore, feel free to visit Metal Mixing Guide number 19, it has been explained pretty well. So speaking of changes, I reproduced all timbre correction impulses in more intelligent way. So this time we don't have drums bus, and for this reason I used to apply limiting on snare bus. If you remember, it was very loud and spiky without drums bus compression. Both rack and floor toms now have different processing, because let's be honest, previous versions sounded very poor. Let's start from floor toms. First thing in chain is correction impulse. Again, this time it's different. Basically it makes toms less boxy and more tight. H comp to add some attack and saturation. Right after we have wide boost of lows. Last thing is limiter, mostly for peak level control, but at the same time it also boosts the level little bit. Rag toms process pretty much the same way. The only difference is this equalizer. This time we also decrease ring lows around 140 Hz. That's it for toms. Let's go for hi-hat. This channel has been recreated from the ground. First thing is new correction impulse, this time with pretty subtle timbre shape. Second plugin is Pro C compressor, which allows us to enhance sustain of hi-hat and also give it interesting stereo image by applying mixed left and right internal side chain. And last thing is Pro Q with dropped boxy mids and noisy highs. Speaking of routing, these 2 kick channels routed to kick bus, these 3 to snare bus, 2 toms to toms bus, and finally all these buses plus rest 4 channels routed straight to master bus. Speaking of sends, we have send to reverb from kick bus. Same send to reverb from snare bus. Tom's bus. Hi-hat and ride channels as well. SSD kick trigger have side chain sent to Pro C on overheads. And bob snare trigger have two side chain sends to overheads and kicks compressors. Now it's time to add other instruments to the mix. As you can see, I already did it. Bass main and bass GTR doesn't have any processing, levels are default. However, I applied pretty extreme amount of sends to reverb to put it deeper in mix. Lead space and lead ride don't have any processing as well. The only thing I did is changing levels. Lead dry have -3 decibels level and lead space -2 decibels. Main guitar track has been dropped 1 decibel down, and I also applied compressor and sidechain mode. Driven by kick bus and snare bus, it helps to put guitars deeper in mix. Let me turn off their out so we can hear pure effect. Speaking of space processing, we have this reverb FX channel, to which we applied reverb sends. That's how it sounds soloed. And now in context of the entire mix. So first thing in chain is VALHALLAROOM reverb based on clear hull preset. And right after I did some equalization to drop down resonating zones. This channel is routed to master bus. Same as for rest 5 channels. And before we'll finally go for mastering, let's take a look at them level and panning settings of mix one more time. Master processing is pretty simple. First thing is multi-band compressor. Notice that lower bands have longer attack time than higher ones. So the point of this plugin is subtle control of lows on first band. And Rust 3 triggered mostly by snare, so as a result we pack it deeper in mix. Stereo imager for subtle stereo enhancement of mids. SSL compressor for gluing purposes. We have really low amount of reduction, something around 2 decibels, however I did gain compensation to equalize incoming and outcoming levels. Last thing is limiter for subtle RMS boost and also control of peak level of track. So that's pretty much it. For those of you who want to get additional files pack, which includes pack of 3 Cubase templates, pack of source DI and MIDI files in case if you use other DAW, full pack of impulses used in this guide, pack of Pro Q presets, pack of Reaper templates. This pack also includes superior drummer presets and custom drum map that I use for drums programming. You will find all of them shits in my private post on Patreon, which will be available after pledging $1. By doing this you will also get access for rest of my private content and help me keep doing what I do. Link is in the description. So hope you learned thing or two from this guide. See you next time.